Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Surfside Recovery Podcast. My name is Brian Licata, and we just wanted to let you guys know that if you or anyone is struggling with addiction, to please reach out to Surfside. You can give us a call at 609-709-4205 or visit us at surfside.org and all of our social media platforms. Welcome to the holiday special, the Surfside Recovery Podcast. My name is Brian Licata, alongside Mr. Ian Koch. So I know it's not the summertime, but we have to talk about my shirt.
We also should acknowledge the elephant in the room, which is that we don't have a guest.
Yes, we don't have a guest.
And we are not doing a live audience. Andrew is out getting cupcakes.
For us.
And he just did a tour with the family this morning, so appreciate that he was able to jump in to do that. Yes, I know it stinks when we don't have the live episode or the live audience.
I know. We'll survive though. He's getting cupcakes, so he's coming back with cupcakes for us.
No, today's been a rough day. A lot of running, and Andrew's stepping in. Unfortunately, I just called this bakery that is a fantastic gluten-free bakery, and they're closed on Thursdays, which I find to be bizarre.
You hate to see it.
So we had to go to the backup. But anyway.
It does seem weird that a bakery wouldn't be open on a Thursday right before the weekend. Especially
but
holiday
they're open
weekend too.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Maybe they prep. Maybe Thursday's like we got to shut this place down and make a lot of things.
All right, so let's get right down to the meat of it. What do you think of my shirt? Yeah.
It's a 10.
It's a 10. Perfect.
It's an 11.
So special shout out to Nick Geisler, who was a guest on the show last week. He bought the shirt specifically for me for this holiday podcast. We have gingerbread, Santa hats, hot chocolate, some weird Miami Dolphins type sweaters. But yeah, it's a good one. Thank you very much, Nick.
And what about my fleece?
Fleece is very festive as well.
This is my favorite Patagonia fleece that I have.
I like it.
I got this one on eBay.
It looks warm.
Some might say it's retro.
I'd say classic over retro.
It's the classic lumberjack, red and black. Isn't that a line from a Biggie Smalls?
I'm not sure. I have a shirt just like that. It's a button up.
Yeah, the red classic and black pattern. Is classic. Yeah, red and black is classic. But I found this on eBay, and
how much was it? Do you remember?
I think like $20.
Not bad.
Solid.
Not bad. So I want to talk a little bit about Christmas songs first. I think that's how we should start. Okay. Start up the episode.
I was just singing one. Which one was I singing?
It's
beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
Yes. It's a good one.
You probably should not sing.
Now, what is your favorite Christmas song?
Carol of the Bells.
There's that dun 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 from Home Alone, right?
Well, it's
in Home Alone.
It is in Home Alone. That's probably what got it famous, or famouser, I would say, for our generation. There is a fantastic album by a pianist called George Winston. He has a couple different albums. One is called Autumn. One is called Fall. He has one called December.
He's one that's at Fall and Autumn?
Yeah, or something like that. There's one called December that's fantastic. It's not... That is the only quote-unquote Christmas song, but it is a phenomenal album to play in the background at like a family party or something like that.
We just need some like music going in the background.
But it's really good. Just piano. Really, really classy.
Mm-hmm. My favorite is Dominic the Donkey.
How's that go?
Jiggity jig. It's Dominic the Donkey. La 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 da dee da.
I've never heard that.
It's an Italian Christmas song.
Can Gail sing it?
I doubt it. She's not Italian. She knows the song though. They used to play it during the 7th inning stretch of New York Mets games.
Okay.
But I'll play it for you afterwards. If I played it now,
maybe you could play it over. Maybe we could just pause this, and then you could play it real quick.
We would probably get taken down off of YouTube for that.
Really?
Yeah, playing somebody else's music, royalty-free stuff.
Who's gonna know?
The algorithms.
Do you think that many? We don't even get a lot of views on YouTube.
It doesn't even have to do with that. It has to do with like just some sort of computer science program that reads code and
stuff.
Whatever. We'll try it though. We'll see what happens. I'll play it right now. So considering this is a recovery and Surfside recovery podcast, we're coming into, or we've been in the holiday season. But what suggestions would you have for people, let's say, first part, if they're in sober living and they're going home for the holidays, what to expect? And then on the flip side, for family members having somebody coming home who's new to recovery.
So, great question. And that's what I wanted to talk about as well. So I think one of the things we do very poorly in 12-step recovery and in recovery in general is we spend 90% of the year focusing on one day at a time, live in the moment, just for today.
Just back a little bit.
Type stuff. Thank you. Except around the holidays, then we get all wound up and we start to project and look into the future and get all wound up. I think it's important to remember, stay in the moment, one day at a time. This is really this is the time for those little slogans, I think, for people. Holidays can be tough for everybody. A lot of people do not know that the biggest domestic violence day of the year is Thanksgiving. Oh no, second biggest is Thanksgiving. The biggest is the Super Bowl. And it's, Super Bowl is people are drunk and rowdy. The Thanksgiving is everyone's drunk and around their families and arguing, and
right.
So not even for people in recovery in general, but it's tough. Like, being around your family is tough,
especially if your family's nuts.
And that's all relative.
Yeah.
I mean, family can be tough. It's that simple. I think so a couple things that I've seen go wrong is family is refusing to change their tradition because of someone who's newly sober.
And you think, so you're saying that they should change whatever the tradition? Okay.
Maybe, sure.
Okay.
So let's say you're going to go home for Thanksgiving and it's your first sober, or Christmas, and it's your first sober Christmas, and you guys always go to Aunt Jenny's house, and Aunt Jenny is a raging alcoholic, and the whole family gets bombed. Your mom and dad don't, but everybody on that side of the family gets bombed. Maybe you sit this one out. Maybe you guys do something different. If you're a family, and it's funny because we always talk to families, and families are like, oh, well, we don't have a problem with drinking. Well, if you don't have a problem with drinking, why don't you remove all the alcohol from your house? Oh, whoa. So maybe you do have a problem with drinking. Because if you don't have a problem, that shouldn't be a problem.
Right. Like, I have a good friend of mine. He told me, because he was so amazed about it, but when he started dating his girlfriend, who's now his wife, he said, if we're together, you can't drink. And she was like, okay. And
it's not a problem for her.
He was like, it was the weirdest thing ever.
Yeah.
He's in the program. He thought it was strange.
It's not a problem for her. and that's, and I think that's the important thing is like, look, this is a lifestyle change for everybody. And, so two things will happen is the family will be resistant to removing alcohol from the holiday, from their home. And on the flip side of the coin, the person newly in recovery, because they don't want to upset anybody, will say, oh no, don't change anything for me. I'll be mad if you guys stop drinking for me, which is a bunch of BS. I've seen a whole bunch of circumstances where, people have been on really solid ground and they've gone home over the holidays, and that monkey just starts to play the cymbals, and clang and clang and clang. And then all of a sudden everybody goes to bed. And in fact, I remember somebody, our boy who's out in California, family went to bed and they left, the bottle of vodka on the kitchen table.
There's a really cool blue jay on top of your shed over there. You see it?
Yeah, there's also squirrels living in that shed.
Oh, really?
We allow them there for the winter. We feel bad for
them. I was like thrown off because I saw it. I'm like, oh, you don't really see a blue jay too often.
So, and what happened was, he was home and the family was drinking, and not getting bombed, but like having a cocktail or two, and
Right.
and when they went to bed, they left it on the kitchen table, and he was up and alone, and that was that.
That was that.
And I think that it's like, how much is it worth?
Right. So where would you, what would you say to the person who's in recovery? Like what should they do? Like I hear a lot of times, like, make sure you go to a meeting. Like say if it's either, Christmas Eve, go, if you have a Christmas Eve party or Christmas Day, maybe go in the morning or at night and have some sort of like exit strategy is something I always heard very early on.
So let's clarify that too. In almost every area, somewhere, shape or form, there is a meeting available.
Yeah, a lot of times it'll be like marathon meetings as well, especially on New Year's.
Have you ever been to one?
Yeah. I think a couple years back, before I came up here, I was in North Carolina, and I went on New Year's Eve marathon meeting from like 7 at night to like 4 in the morning or something.
Yeah, it's kind of nice, actually.
It's funny because usually at those marathon meetings, at least the one I went to, it was the same people at like, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, like in the morning. Mm-hmm. And it was funny how like loopy because everyone was drinking like, Red Bulls and coffee, and like what people were saying, like the later it got into the night was like kind of comical.
And so there's always like a marathon meeting around. It might be called an alkathon or something of that nature. If you're in early recovery and you don't know how to find that, you want to go to Google and you want to find out where find your local AA phone number or NA phone number, whether that's searching, your county. Like for us, we would search like Atlantic County Alcoholics Anonymous Intergroup or Atlantic County Narcotics Anonymous. Or I think it's South Jersey Narcotics Anonymous or something. And make sure you find like a legitimate NA or AA website, and that website will have a phone number. And if you call that phone number, that should have a hotline, and you should be able to ask where is the local, where the local meetings in relation to
your
where
location.
I am. Right. It's not very difficult to figure out. Mm-hmm. So I would always say find a meeting that you can go to. Sometimes it's just nice to get away for a few minutes. Have mom, dad, or whoever, drop you off, have them pick you back up. I would say make sure you have 3 people that are going to check in on you, like maybe a sponsor, a couple buddies. I would also say plan on having 3 people that you're going to check in on, right? So maybe 3 guys
That's a good point. I haven't heard anybody say that in a while.
Have less sobriety than you, know, so where you can be helpful. And check in on some of those guys. Like if you're living in a sober house,
call some of your buddies who, your roommates.
Call some of the roommates, and call some of the guys who just got there. Right. So if any of the Surfside guys are watching this, like some of you guys in phase 3, you should make sure to call some of the guys who got there in the last month, and kind of get out of your comfort zone and reach out to people who are newer. Some of you guys who have graduated and have been out for multiple years, even though you're not sponsoring people in the house, it's okay to reach out to some of the guys that you barely know just to see how they're doing. Over Thanksgiving, I actually had a nightmare about a bizarre situation. I was taking a nap, and
the nightmare occurred during the nap, or you
during the nap?
Okay, not a nightmare of a nap.
Yeah, so I will also say this for all you parents who have PTSD, I do as well. So I totally, although I'm not a parent, I totally understand what you are going through at times. So I'm napping. And I literally sit up in a state of panic. In the dream I was having, Andy, who is our recovery specialist.
Have you told him this dream?
I don't actually know that I've told him this. Okay. I told Dan. So Andy was allowing Utah, who is one of our staff who used to work for us. Utah in my dream was a resident. He was allowing Utah. And
he works for us now.
Correct. Okay. And so Andy was allowing Utah and this other guy to smoke pot. And in the dream, Andy was like, whatever, like, we're just not going to tell Ian and Dan.
Right.
And in the dream, like, I knew it was happening, but like I couldn't seem to stop it. And that's when I like woke up in a state of panic. And I texted Dan and I was like, how's everybody doing?
Those dreams are the worst, man. When you like wake up in terror.
So Dan is like, oh, everybody's fine. You know, I've talked to a couple of the guys. Well, I immediately reached out to every single one of our residents to check in on them and see how they were doing.
Right.
So, you know, and checking in on people is helpful. You know, like, how you doing? Can I help with anything? So check in on people, make sure people are checking in on you, have a meeting. I would say get humble and ask your family to remove the alcohol from the house, even if they're casual drinkers. And I really will say, like, for those of you parents who have a loved one in early recovery, like, if you're going to have a cocktail this holiday season, I would say shame on you. I think that's really rude. You guys put so much emphasis on your kids changing their lives, and the second they're doing okay, y'all think everything is fine, and the truth is it's not. It's almost harder for an addict or an alcoholic to see somebody casually drink or casually smoke pot or something than it is to see somebody bombed, because the obsession typically manifests as this idea that it's going to be okay, or this time's going to be different, or it's not going to be that bad. So if dad is having, you know, let's say a scotch on the rocks and is just sipping it, James will say, or Bill, or whoever, whatever his name is, or her name is, will start, the way that it manifests is they'll start to say to themselves, well, you know, my problem was heroin. I never really even had a problem with alcohol. Or, well, you know, I'm 6 months sober now. I can probably have just one sip or two. And it starts, right? I mean, you've experienced this. I've experienced this. And
I'm nodding because I agree with you. Yeah,
like it little by slow, it starts to work. And as you watch that person who legitimately is not an alcoholic, who does not have a problem, sip the drink, the mind is like, oh, I can do that too. Next thing you know, they sneak off and they sip the drink and they're back in treatment. And then the family's pissed off. You know, so some of this stuff, like early recovery, I mean, they pretty much say you're almost in the clear when you have 5 years sober. That's what the markers are starting to look like.
Brain chemistry
your
wise?
brain has like readjusted. You've learned like healthy coping behaviors when you have 5 years sober. So if your loved one is coming home and they're early in sobriety, early as in like, I would say under 2 years, be mindful. I mean, like if they end up back in treatment because you left pills in the pill cabinet or whatever, like you
got to do your part. It wouldn't, in my opinion, wouldn't necessarily be their fault, because
no, I wouldn't say it's their fault, but like it's definitely
contributing factor.
It's definitely a contributing factor. I mean, this is some stuff that we know to be fact. Like, we know it is a fact that when somebody is a drug addict or an alcoholic and they watch somebody consume substances, whether it's on TV or in person, we know that that is triggering for people, regardless of where they're at. I mean,
we've talked about that on other podcasts. That I remember when I was living in the Surfside house, and guys would watch like Drugs Inc. and other shows like that.
Dumb. Yeah, like dumb.
They're like, oh, you don't want to watch? I'm like, no, I do not want to watch that. Even I rewatched Breaking Bad, which is I don't know if you've seen the show. It's about a guy who manufactures crystal meth. The drugs really don't have that big a part in the story, but anytime there was a scene like that, I would just skip through it.
It's,
you know, like, I'm not trying to see that.
So it's about having smart feet, and when the family is so oblivious or so selfish that, you know, they can't hold off for a day or two. I mean, I think the family really needs to question their own behaviors, you know, like, and that's some of the hard stuff that, like, it's like, is it really that big of a deal? when I moved home, I moved home for a short 3 months in early sobriety, between months 2 and 6. So I think it was my 3rd, 4th, and 5th, or something like that. Maybe month 3 and whatever. My parents took all the alcohol out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
What I didn't know is my dad actually had a case of beer up in the shed. We had a very long driveway. It was a quarter mile, and out by the one driveway, or the end of the driveway, he had a shed, and he kept a case of beer out
really?
there.
When did you find out that he had that in there? Years later, probably, right?
I think it was, yeah, a couple years later. And I didn't care. I actually thought it was funny at the time when I found out. But it's like, what's it worth?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants their kids to get sober, but to what extent?
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to a father the other day, and his son's coming at the day after Christmas. And his kid's, I think, just turned 21, or maybe is 20.
Mm-hmm.
And he said something about a beer, and I was like, yeah, but do you understand, like, you're asking someone who's 20 years old to never have a drink of alcohol. Ever.
Right.
Ever.
Mm-hmm.
That is a huge commitment.
Yeah.
And he's like, wow. He's like, I never really thought of it like that. I was like, well, how else would you think of it?
Right. Yeah, some people just don't know.
Oh, he can't use crystal meth today, but like next week he'll be able to use crystal meth. Like,
right.
This is the way this stuff works. And and I think that's like, I'm not saying the family needs to like not drink forever, but like my family, they have God, everybody's starting to get so old, none of them can drink. I just found out everybody's on CBD, though. Everybody's got a CBD cream for some sort of ache and pain. But yeah, like my family's to the point now.
Have we done an episode on CBD yet?
We're not going there. I actually know somebody, an owner of a treatment center, gave him CBD with THC in it, and it set him on like a violent relapse.
Really?
Violent relapse, yeah. Idiots.
So
he's not an idiot. They're more of an idiot. But anyway, point being is like my family, they will have a drink or two, but I mean, the first year of my sobriety, like nobody did,
right,
and nobody cared either.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of embarrassed, but like I had to understand, like they were doing this to support me,
right. So in quick, I hear your phone ringing, and we want to kind of wrap this up soon. What would you suggest to people who are sometime in that range, whatever, 2, 3, 4, 5 years to whatever, dealing with families too? Because I know we have some listeners too who have been sober for a little bit of time, and it can still be difficult even though you've been sober for a little bit longer.
Have people that you can check in on.
Mm-hmm.
Have some people that who are new in sobriety that you can reach out to. Get out of your head, basically. Right. I would also say be helpful. I know that like I struggle with my family sometimes because between my mother and my wife's mother, there's not a lot to do in terms of like cooking. They're both very good at cooking, and quite honestly, they're way better than I could ever be. But it's like I get bored, you know what I mean? And I get idle hands. I was talking to one of our guys at Surfside about this the other day. So it's like, try to be helpful, try to do something.
Yeah, you can do the dishes, set the table, clean up.
Just keep moving.
I know, not particularly in my family, but other guys I know say they always like play with their little cousins or something
play
like
with
that.
The cousins,
like hang out with the kids who were like 10 and under.
And if you're going to any of your family members' houses, like when you walk in the door, like ask, is there anything I can do? Mm-hmm. Do you need help with something? Do you want me to go outside and clean the gutters? Like, seriously, like,
yeah.
Is there any sort of odd chore that you could have me do? And just try to be helpful, try to get out of your own way and go from there.
So in summary,
don't drink.
Don't drink. Help people. and help people, right?
The meetings, figure out where meetings are.
Figure out where the meetings are, marathon meetings,
Call people.
Stay in touch. We wish everyone to have a super happy and healthy holiday.
I'll also say this.
Drive safely.
Our phone line is going to be live throughout the holidays. So if any families do have a crisis, call. It'll go to my voicemail. Leave a voicemail. We will get back to you.
609-709
024
0245
4205.
4205.
Whatever. We'll flash it across the bottom.
Yes. Thank you. Happy holidays. Be safe out there on the roads. Bye.
Merry Christmas.
As always, if you or someone you know is struggling, please reach out to Surfside. You can give us a call at 609-709-4205 or get us on the web at surfside.org.